Hello and welcome to Consciousness and I. My name is Josefin. Maybe you've interacted with me before, perhaps in my podcast, which is in Swedish, or maybe this is your first time. Either way, warmly welcome. This is a place for self-exploration, basically in any perspective, but the thing that's close to my heart is non-duality. And the way I refer to non-duality is basically that everything in the universe, including our inner lives, can be explained by one thing. And we just happen to call that consciousness. And with consciousness, I don't mean any far-fetched ideas. I mean the very thing that is aware inside of ourselves, is aware of what we think about, is aware about the world, the thing that notices. That entity that you can't really touch, that's not even an entity. But the activity of being aware, using that, we can build up a model of the universe that corresponds to our scientific findings. The way we're brought up in the West is very much a dualistic way of looking at it. Most of us doesn't even know it, but we see the world as matter on the outside and mind on the inside. And we usually start by explaining it with matter, and that once matter becomes complex enough, such as our nervous system, then consciousness spontaneously arises out of that. But that creates a bit of an enigma. We create the hard problem of consciousness. How does something with such qualitative experiences, such qualitative aspects, arise out of something that's purely quantitative, that's dead matter? We don't know the answer to that. And maybe the question is actually, why did we even invent matter and put it primary in the first place? Science doesn't need that to explain itself. So when I talk about it more from a spiritual perspective or from a self-reflection perspective, I probably mostly use non-duality. But if we speak more strictly scientific, I'd use the term analytic idealism. And I'm a big fan of Bernardo Kastrup, who's one of the champions of that metaphysical worldview. But basically that's what I refer to, non-duality. Not having to explain the world using two different things and then explain how they interact, how one arises out of the other, but rather be able to reduce everything we experience, our memories, our thoughts, our sense perceptions, and explain it with consciousness, with one, non-dual, not two. And why is this even interesting? Why even bother to explore it? Well, one thing is just that it's interesting, because it's wanting to know how the world is. And the second thing is that it's not really possible to live your life without somehow referring to the way you see the world. If we believe that we are these bodies made of matter and the consciousness arises out of them, then we will see ourselves as a bit isolated. Like what's inside of me, my mental states, my emotions, my memories, my dreams, they have no value out in the real world. And when I meet another person, there's this vast ocean of not life between us. And then they are their own island with their own consciousness, very much separate from mine. It easily becomes a lonely existence in that sense. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. You could also see that if I'm primary consciousness and everything I see around me, when I look into the eyes of someone I meet, I see the same substance as me. It's not a different consciousness, it's the same consciousness. Actually, that's one of the fundamental principles, that if everything is one, then I cannot have one consciousness and you have another. Actually, we share the consciousness. I and you share the consciousness of everything and everyone. It's the feeling of oneness. And the feeling of oneness is what we commonly call love. Not in a poetic way, in a very descriptive way. When I feel one with something or with everything, I feel love. So imagine the difference between living in a world where all you see is yourself, different reflections of yourself compared to living in a world where you're something odd. Your inner world is the thing that's not common. It's the thing that the rest of the universe can't relate to. It's quite a different way of moving about. And also there's a different way of how your body needs to protect itself, almost subconsciously, like it tenses up, like it doesn't really belong. And also the way we relate to death is highly influenced by that. We might think that we don't reflect upon death that much. And maybe that's true, but I would like to suggest that subconsciously we do. Because if we believe that our consciousness arises from matter, arises from our bodies, then when we die, it will inevitably evaporate. It will go into non-existence. It's like my dreams and my memories and everything I experienced all of a sudden means nothing. Becomes easily a bit of a meaningless existence. But if we believe that we're primary consciousness and that the body is the way that the consciousness looks when it's active in the human form, then death only means the death of this manifestation. It doesn't mean the death of my inner life. It means that consciousness, which is the essence of everything, is transformed. And if we open up for that worldview, we can also open up for science. Proper science. Do the trials. Look at it with the views of science. How does this work? How is this behaving? What happens if we use all of our observations? So our metaphysical models is very much affecting how we live our lives. And this is what I find so super interesting. Well, partly just that the spirituality, my spiritual path and my science path have all of a sudden merged, or not all of a sudden, but through this understanding of letting go of materialism, of physicalism. It's not that much more different observing the world and looking inward. We reach the same spot. But also how much it affects my emotional life. We all long for freedom, for love, for belonging, to release our creativity, to be playful. So non-duality for me is partly just very exciting, but also part of a journey of being more alive, allowing myself to express authentically, to get all of that stuff I long for in life, to have them manifest in my life, to see them, to celebrate them, to see them in others, to live in a world where love is easily accessible for me. So if this sounds interesting to you, if you're on a similar path, if you're curious to what this path can mean, you're warmly welcome to join. I don't have all the answers. I think none of us does. All we are is localizations inside this vast cosmos. And why hide that from each other? We can learn so much. Your way of looking at the world, looking through your eyes, through your sense perceptions, is a unique way for the universe to observe itself. And same for me. And if we share it, we double it. We get to see more of the universe than we can do on our own. How beautiful is that? So I guess this is my invitation to authenticity, to share truth, community, curiosity. If this sounds interesting to you, then warmly welcome to follow. Join me on the journey. My name is Josefin, and this is Consciousness and Me.